session. Mr. Clerk, let's go to roll call.
Mix Santa Cruz.
Here.
Mr. Cunningham.
Here.
Mr. Dahl.
Here.
Mrs. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Fimbres.
Here.
Mr. Kozaczyk.
Here.
Mayor Romero.
Here. Item 2.
Invocation and appointments to boards, committees, and commissions.
The invocation will be given by Yolanda Lozano, Assistant City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Pray for our mayor and council members today and ask that they be given the wisdom to govern with a sense of welfare and true needs of our people. We ask that they be given the ability to work together in harmony, even where there is dishonest agreement. Deepen their love for the city of Tucson and their desire to serve it. We pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give them assurance of what would benefit those who live and work in our beloved city. Amen.
Amen.
Item 2D.
Appointments to boards, committees, and commissions.
City Manager's communication number 359, dated December 7th, is received into and made part of the record. Are there any personal appointments to be made at this time?
I do have some, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Fimbres.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to reappoint the following individuals as Ward 5 representatives to the respective boards, committees, and commissions. Tracy Hockett for the Citizens Public Advisory Review Board, Sandy Brook to the Pima County Tucson Historical Commission, Mary Brianna Cardenas to the Pima County Tucson Women's Commission, Nick Padford for the Planning Commission, Jay Young for the Planning Commission, Bobby Jaramillo for the Citizens Water Advisory Committee, Luis Paradas for the Commission of Climate, Energy, and Sustainability, Janine Mortimer for the Public Tucson Commission. I'd also like to appoint Bob Clark as a Ward 5 representative, Independent Audit Commission. That's all I have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Fimbres. Any others? I don't see any, and we don't have any appointments on tonight's agenda. We move on to item 3.
Mayor and council report summary of current events.
City Manager's communication number 360, dated December 7th, is received into and made part of the record. This time has been scheduled to allow members of the mayor and council to report on current events. These are to be current event of activities within the community, not position statements on policy issues. Does any council member have anything to report at this time? So, I'm going to take this as a point of privilege and we'll start us off with a summary of current events. First and most importantly, I'd like to welcome to his first regular meeting to our newest member of the council, Councilmember Kevin Dahl. I'm looking forward to productive discussions at this table, and I'm really happy to have you in as our new council colleagues, Kevin. Also, I'd like to congratulate all of those City of Tucson employees who were recognized today to the 40 under 40 Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce recognition. Our very own council member, Nikki Lee, made it to that list, to the 40 under 40 list. I'm very, very happy to announce that Councilmember Lee, as well as Amanda Bruno in our Economic Initiatives Office, was recognized, and Detective Steven Acevedo at TPD. All three, congratulations for the great accomplishment, and I'm so happy that your work was recognized by the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and the Arizona Daily Star today. Thank you so much for your service to the community. Also, I would like to share that we have partnered, the city of Tucson has partnered, and the mayor's office with the American Friends Service Committee for the Reimagining Community Safety Survey. This will help inform our community safety, health, and wellness program and tackle racial injustice and inequity for communities of color. We will use our findings to drive progress to a more equitable justice system by organizing affected communities in Tucson, Arizona, to generate their own evidence of what constitutes safety in their neighborhoods. This extensive community outreach and input are vital for the city of Tucson to better serve its residents. The survey will be taking responses for the next 6 months. So you can find this survey at afscarizona.org. This is American Friends Service Committee, Arizona.org, afscarizona.org. We will be sharing it with all of you so that you can share it with your respective ward residents and on your social media sites. With that, I will start our summary of current events with in reverse. I'll start with Ward 6 and then go down the line. So Council Member Steve Kozachik.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Council Member Fimbres.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Today, Tuesday, December 7th, marks an important day in the nation's history. December 7, 1941, the Imperial Japanese Navy attacked U.S. forces at Pearl Harbor and other locations in Hawaii, taking the lives of 2,403 service members, civilians, and leading President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and the United States to declare its entrance into the World War II. More than half those who died were on the USS Arizona. It was a day that still lives in infamy 80 years later. On this day, we give thanks to the greatest generation who guided our nation through some of the darkest moments and laid down the foundations of an international system that has transformed former adversaries into allies. I also want to thank everyone who has served or is serving in the nation in the military dealing with conflict from World War II to today. Also on Monday, December 6th, the Mayor and Council conducted their inauguration for the council members for Ward 3, Ward 5, and Ward 6. I want to thank the voters of Ward 5 and those who voted for me, and I look forward to continuing to work as your Ward 5 council member. I want to congratulate Ward 6 council member Steve Kozachik on his election and swearing on, as well as look forward to working with him for another 4 years. I want to thank the newest council member, Kevin Dahl, to the table. I want to wish Kevin the best of luck. Look forward to his participation, ideas, and dialogue on this issue and the mayor and council will face. On Wednesday, November 24th, I and my office staff and the Tucson business owners were able to distribute 160 food boxes to families in need in Ward 5. I want to thank the school staff at Utterback, St. John's, Apollo, and Santa Cruz Church for their work to help those families and those that needed food boxes for the Thanksgiving holiday. I want to thank Mayor Romero and the $1 Million Trees Initiative, their latest project in Ward 5 at the Barrio Central neighborhood. On Saturday, December 4th, the initiative planted trees in the neighborhood, helping to beautify Barrio Central and to help with the heat island issue. Congratulations to Mayor Romero for securing additional funding from Swire Coca-Cola to plant more trees, which has totaled 39,000 in Tucson since Mayor Romero began this effort. On Saturday, December 4th, the 520 boys held their annual Stuff the Fire Truck effort in the office at the office depot, collecting the toys for underprivileged children. Congratulations to the 520 boys on a successful effort, and a big thank you to TPD Sergeant Will Corrales, who let the 520 boys use his fire truck for the effort. Monday, December 6th marked the 5th anniversary of the Tucson Homeless Work Program. The Tucson Homeless Work Program on December 6th, 2016, the idea of the pilot locally came out of a work group. My office has been convening on homelessness that started meeting in October of 2015. The purpose of the Tucson Homeless Work Program is to give people a pathway out of homelessness through work, community collaboration, and navigation of existing services. Participation will complete a health screening for job readiness, work a 5-hour day, cleaning roadways, will be fed at the end of the work day, will have access to a shower, clothing, hygiene items, and offered shelter for the night. The Tucson Homeless Work Program has been recognized by the Metro Prima Alliance, the Arizona chapter of NARO, and the National NARA organization. More than 950 people have used the Tucson Homeless Work Program, cleaning up more than 200 sites, more than 300 miles of roadway cleaned, and 300,000 pounds of garbage cleared. On Thursday, December 9th, Las Artes Youth Group are holding their graduation for the fall semester. Las Artes offers a unique learning environment for youth ages 17 to 22, combining a structured classroom study combined with community art projects that allow students to prepare for general education development tests and learn value job readiness skills. Congratulations to the students. Education is the key to success. And on Saturday, December 18th, Arizona Firefighters Athletics and Buena Vida are holding their toy drive for Miracle in El Barrio called Toys for Tacos. On December 18th, from noon to 6 p.m., people coming to Buena Vida at 919 North Stone Avenue, number 1104, will donate a toy. We'll get 2 free tacos. In addition, these will be local vendors and art show and a book signing by David Mambrella. Lastly, the U.S. Senate tonight voted to approve Chris Mangus as the new commissioner for the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The vote was 52 to 47. Congratulations to Chris Mangus, who leaves us now for Washington, D.C. Thank you, Chief, for your work at Tucson's Police Chief, and we hope your success in your new position, for which Tucson looks forward to working with you on. Congratulations also to Deputy Chief Chad Kazmer, who will become the next police chief, and I and my office look forward to working with him in his new role. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all I have.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Councilmember Fimbres. Councilmember Lee.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
Councilmember Dahl.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the warm welcome, and thanks for the welcome from all of the council members and city staff that I've talked to. I look forward to a great 4 years with you all. I have some great news from neighborhood associations in Ward 3. Bronx Park Neighborhood Association is a newly organized neighborhood association roughly in the same area that Ocotillo Oracle Neighborhood Association existed before. The neighborhood associations Amphi and Coronado Heights are also undergoing revitalization with new neighbors getting involved. I want to recognize the Tucson Police Department's West Operation Division's initiatives, doing a Grant Oracle Business Coalition with support of Ward 3. Upcoming, my own neighborhood association, Samos, is having its first in-person event. We're doing a brunch potluck in open air and a wash in the neighborhood on Sunday. And Limberlost Neighborhood Association is holding an event to celebrate the restoration of the North Stone Avenue mural near Limberlost and Stone on December 18th from 2 to 4, which is a reminder that a city full of beautiful murals. This one is a long-standing one. Eventually, they have to be restored. So let's pay attention and make sure that these beautiful works of art continue to please Tucsonans for generations. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Cunningham. You're on mute.
Your Honor, I wanted to give a big thank you to, well, first of all, let me start with welcoming Councilmember Dahl. Congratulations, Steve and Richard, on their new terms. Obviously, we have a great council. We've all been working together for a while, so let me get that first. The other thing I want to do is recognize our streets department. They've delivered multiple residential roads in the last 2 months. Pretty much we hit every neighborhood between 22nd and Speedway that is east of Sarnoff. Has had some road work done. We have some more going. That's part of the 7 million initiative that we did, along with the Tucson Delivers. And Streets has done a really good job in getting that project going, despite materials, despite water, despite the rains over the summer backing some projects up. And so I really wanted to give them a shout out. We are losing our department head, Diana Alarcon, at the end of the month. And even as she's on her way out, she has consistently been responsive, and her staff has done an incredible job helping us. So I wanted to give a recognition to the Tucson Transportation Department, the MT department today, because they've really been doing a great job out there on the east side. That brings me to the last thing, and this is kind of just an overview. Happy holidays, everybody. Since COVID started, it's been quite a whirlwind, hasn't it? And here we are in this kind of holiday season, and all I can just tell everyone to do is keep the spirit of Christmas. You know, we watched It's a Wonderful Life and Christmas Carol and all that stuff. Those last 2 weeks, it's kind of those family things we do, and so keep that spirit with you, because we need it coming up, and I think we'll find everything else. Finally, I want to recognize one more time Councilmember Fimbres for saying all the other stuff I wanted to say right now. So I appreciate that. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember, Vice Mayor, I keep saying Councilmember, Vice Mayor Santa Cruz.
Hi, Mayor. It's kind of funny to get used to the new title. But thank you so much for my colleagues for entrusting me with the title of Vice Mayor, and also Councilmember Dahl for joining us on the council. Looking forward to working with you, and just extending my congratulations again, as well as to Councilmember Kozaczyk and Councilmember Fimbres for getting reelected. Our current events are pretty brief. On December 11th from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., Galeria Mitotera is doing their Feliz Mercadito del Barrio, a local vendor pop-up market. Again, this Saturday, December 11th from 1 to 4. And then on Sunday, December 12th, our office, along with Fuga, is doing their second Sunday brunch ride, which we call Bicis and Burros. We meet outside of the Ward 1 office at 9 a.m. and we're usually done around 11. It's a family-friendly ride. So anybody, I want to extend the invitation to anybody listening, interested in joining us for that. And then with that, also want to extend my congratulations to my colleague, Councilmember for the recognition for congratulations, Councilmember.
Yes, thank you so much. Good things to celebrate. Lots of good news, lots of good recognitions, and I'm happy with my council, with my colleagues on the council, and having you here with me to do the amazing policy work that we're used to. Let's move on to item 4.
City Manager's Report, Summary of Current Events.
It's not a good idea to have peanut M&Ms when you're running a meeting. City Manager's Communication number 361, dated December 7th, is received into and made part of the record. This time has been scheduled to allow the City Manager to report on current events. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mayor, and members of the council. Just a few things. One, I know that some of you have announced Chris Magnus's vote. That is official. That vote has occurred. I did speak with him. He will be resigning his position as chief, which I think we all knew was coming. I will then move to appoint Chad Kazmar based on direction I received from you. That will become effective pretty much immediately. I will also move to appoint Sharon McDonough as the interim director of the 911 Communications Center. That also will be effective immediately based on all the movement. So I will follow the direction to come to you on December 21st with an ordinance for the appointment of Chad Kazmar as the ordinance that would appoint him more formally. So Mayor, with that, thank you very much. Again, thank you to the council for your decisiveness on that. I think that it's the right thing to do, and I'm very pleased that we're going to be able to move in this direction. Thank you, Mayor.
And I would like to add big congratulations to newly appointed Commissioner Magnus on his bipartisan vote on the Senate and his new adventure. We're lucky that Commissioner Magnus understands our city and the needs of Southern Arizona and the Tucson sector. So we're very lucky that we will have him as Commissioner for CBP. With that, let's move on to item 5.
Your Honor, before we move to item 5, if I could have a point of privilege under item 4.
Yes, of course.
This evening will be Chief Deputy City Clerk Suzanne Message's last meeting. After 42 years with the city, she has decided to retire, and I just wanted to say thank you and that she will be missed. Item 5 is liquor license applications.
Yes, our appreciation to Deputy City Clerk Suzanne Message. It's incredible the amount of years of service that she has given the residents of Tucson, and very specifically mayor and council and our staffs. So she will be absolutely, Suzanne, we are going to miss you very much. Congratulations.
I agree, Madam Mayor. Make Chiefs and Knowledge will be missed.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for mentioning that. We appreciate it. A city manager's communication number 362, dated December 7th, is received into and made part of the record. Mr. Clerk, please read the liquor license agenda.
Your Honor, on this evening's liquor license agenda, under item 5B, we have 6 requests for new license, 9 requests for owner and or location transfer. Staff has indicated that all the applicants are in compliance with city requirements with the exceptions of item 5B1 and item 5B7. Those items will be considered separately. An appropriate motion would be to forward items 5B1 through 15, except items 1 and 7 to the State Liquor Board with a recommendation of approval.
So moved.
May I have a motion, please?
Second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. What is the council's pleasure on the other items?
So, Your Honor, on item 5B1, this is Taco Hero located in Ward 4. Staff has indicated that the applicant is not in compliance with city requirements. They're in compliance with all of the requirements under the state. However, they have not completed the liquor mitigation plan as required by the city. We would recommend that the council approve this license this evening in order to meet the 60-day deadline under the condition that they complete the mitigation plan.
I'll move that forward, Mayor.
I'll second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Mr. Clerk?
And the final item is item 5B7. It's Taboo Bar located in Ward 6, Your Honor.
Councilmember Kozachik, did you have any thoughts on this one in particular?
Roger, the material indicates that PDSD says they're out of compliance. Are they brought into compliance? Are we in the same situation as the one Nikki just moved forward, or is this a different condition?
Mr. Kozachik, Mayor and Council, this is a different situation. My understanding as of the beginning of the meeting, they were still working on their design plan, and so they're still not in compliance with PDSD.
Do we have a deadline that we need to act on, or can it be done on the 21st?
This is already past the 60-day deadline. We've already had the extension, which is no longer authorized by the state.
Then I would move that we make a recommendation of denial.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 6.
Call to the audience.
At this time, the public is allowed to address the mayor and council on any issue, except for items scheduled for a public hearing at this meeting. Speakers are limited to 3-minute presentations. Call to the audience is scheduled to last for no more than 30 minutes. Pursuant to the Arizona Open Meeting Law, individual council members may ask the city manager to review the matter, ask the matter be placed on a future agenda, or respond to criticism made by speakers. However, the mayor and council may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during call to the audience. We have a list for call to the audience. Alrighty, and we just need to make sure that those that are not speaking or not called on to speak, please mute yourselves. And if you are called on to speak, please press *6 to unmute yourself. So the first person I have for call to the audience is Steve Dolan. Steve Dolan.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Mr. Dolan.
First, congratulations to the council members and vice mayor inaugurations yesterday and to all new mayor and council team members. This is a follow-up to my last call to the audience. I'm Steve Dolan of 4154 North Tortolita Road in the Tucson Mountains. Thanks again to Diana Alarcon, Director, her Transportation and Mobility staff, and Sarah at Ward 3 for working with the Tucson Mountains Association and residents for the proposed Silver Bell Road widening. Our next meeting is December 13th. Working together is a positive way to reach acceptable solutions. Apparently, Tucson Electric Power does not want to work to meet City of Council Unified Development Code requirements. There are 2 pending cases at the City Board of Adjustment for TEP to not underground utilities. First, Silver Bell Road Scenic Route, that's only 3 miles. The second one is Keno Gateway Corridor that many of you are familiar with. There is no Silver Bell Road variance decision yet due to a lack of quorum by the Board of Adjustment. In 2021, there were 4 monthly meetings by the Board of Adjustment canceled or no decision due to lack of quorum. At the November 17th Board of Adjustment public hearing, City Assistant Attorney Roy Luck, I think is his name, said board members who did not hear the entire public hearing should abstain from the vote. Only 2 board members listened to the entire November 17th public hearing. I request the city attorney to determine why there is too often a lack of quorum at the Board of Adjustment. And to clarify, is there a new Board of Adjustment public hearing for all board members scheduled December 15th for the Silver Bell Road TEP variance request? The dozen signs along Silver Bell Road for notice of Board of Adjustment public hearing on November 17th have been removed. So neighborhoods and residents are confused. Is there a new public hearing? Also at the November 17th Board of Adjustment public hearing, TEP transmission line at Keno was continued at the request of a lawyer representing TEP. Apparently, TEP wants to modify the Unified Development Code for gateway and scenic corridor zones rather than comply with the requirements for underground utilities. I request Mayor and Council or City Manager to direct the City Planning and Development Services Department to not modify and weaken the Unified Development Code
30 seconds.
at the request of TEP. TEP has already put up too many big, ugly metal power poles that ruin neighborhoods, road safety sightlines, and scenic quality in Tucson. I will work with the new mayor and council, especially Kevin Dahl in Ward 3 that extends into the Tucson Mountains. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Dolan. James King. Hello, Mr. King.
Yes, I am. I'm here. Can you guys all hear me, Mayor?
Yes, we can, Mr. King. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mayor and council members and city manager. I'm calling on behalf of all environmental services operators that we are being very, very underpaid, and that the situation is I heard that we went through the process of the marketing analysis, and they use the same company, the same situation as that they're going to get the same results. Well, I'm going to give you guys in the scenario. They're going to give you guys the same scenario as in, if I'm going to go get a heart surgeon and I want a second opinion, am I going to go to the same doctor and get the same opinion? No, I'm not. I'm going to go to a different doctor to get a different opinion. And I don't understand how you guys ended up with the same company and get the same results and saying that we're very underpaid. Right now, me personally, I am 36% underpaid in this city, and I'm 39% nationwide underpaid. I don't know how is it going to be coming out to this when my director ended up getting close to a 24% raise. And where's our money? Yeah, he gets a raise. He doesn't worry about feeding the kids, worrying about we got to pay our mortgages. We all know that the mortgage and everything, that everything's striking up because of the situation of they want to raise the minimum wage. Everything's going up. Gas, the groceries. I went into the groceries and I saw a gallon of milk that's close to $3 to $4. So come on, how are you guys going to sit here and tell us operators that we've been here 20 years, 15 years, 5 years, 30 years, and tell them that we're underpaid? It is not physically possible to be underpaid. Overpaid. So I beg you, Mayor and council members, to re-look at this thing. And I'm asking you guys, as the civil service worker, that we were here through the COVID, through going there, coming in every morning, getting the job done, and just because we love Tucson. So I'm asking you guys, re-look at this and look at the operators, because we are very underpaid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Manager,
Mayor.
just to ask you to review the request by Mr. King. I know that there was some processing of the market rate analysis for environmental services truck operators. So if you can review the matter, I'd really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Mayor.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Abriza Ziegler. Abriza.
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Go ahead, Abriza.
Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Abriza Zakir. I live in Ward 1, and I am a citizen of the Sonoran Desert. I'd first like to welcome Council Dog to Ward 1 and congratulate Council Santa Cruz as Vice Mayor, and also to commend Mayor Romero and the other council members for protecting our Pima Mine Storage Facility supply rights and management of sustainable water practices. Water shortages and availability, excuse me, I'm a little hoarse, will be a fact in the not so distant future. The city county recharging of affluent waters is wonderful, but we need to do more. Policy changes in the UDC could help protect our diminishing water reserves by certain restrictions. Waiting for the CAP water to stop flowing, and it will stop flowing. Waiting for pumping of groundwater in the future, which will cause subsidence and an ever-increasing demand on our environment and our community. Waiting till there's no other choice before drastic measures can be put in place. It is time for Tucson and Pima County to stop waiting and to make policy changes that will protect water supplies, quality, and affordability. You can conserve and recharge water, but you cannot make more of it. We are in a current water crisis that demands actions at both local and national levels. At our current growth, will we have enough water to sustain our communities in 100 years? We need a whole new set of ideas that are outside the current planning strategies we use. I was brought up believing that one could accomplish almost anything. Because we humans are not only resourceful and smart, that we are also can be quite persistent. I'm asking us to look closely, stop waiting, and be resourceful and persistent. And on another note, I was wondering if the mayor and council, what the mayor and council would do to support our beloved Arizona Daily Star. Can any kind of GIFT funds be used by passing through businesses for them to advertise in our local paper? Can the city pay for online subscriptions for our schools, libraries, and community centers? We need to save our local paper. Thank you very much for your attention, and congratulations. Bye.
Thank you, Abriza. John Schlett. John Schlett. You need to press *6 to unmute yourself.
Mayor and council, I have John Sleck right here. If you would like, if he wants to use my phone.
Okay. Yes, it's his turn to speak.
Just use this one.
All right. Good afternoon. This is John Schleck. I'm Chief Steward and President of ASHME. I have about 20 or so guys, drivers, ESEOs here. Whoa.
You don't have it on speaker.
You're on speaker.
John, you're still on. I don't know if you muted
Okay,
yourself.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Not only do we have a program here that lists all the wages of the employees, but also of management. It's a year in delay. It's public record, and it's pretty disheartening when you see from the director all the way to the superintendent, they're from 40% overpaid to 169 at the director level. And then when you pull up the drivers, I'll use my own, for example, I'm 39% underpaid. And this is, again, I'm hearing of another bonus. I thought we were done with bonuses. The bonuses, they're not, they're being used to retain. Retention is for older employees. Older employees, I thought, were done going through these bonuses. $1,000 bonus is equivalent of a 50-cent raise. Why can we just not get the 50-cent raise? We are so underpaid, overworked. We're just got another mandated overtime directive from the director good through a week before Christmas. At some point in time, if there's money there to overpay so way overpaid on everything in salary, why can we not at least be paid correctly? And these numbers in this program directly are, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is we were found and had to protest that 3.6 was all that we were to get as this occupation. This occupation is saying now we are paid correctly. We protested it, whereas this program showing that we're 40% underpaid. What venues were picked? Were they handpicked? We really seriously need to start paying our employees the correct amount, and bonuses are not getting us there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schleck. Michael Guyman.
Mayor Romero, I'm set to speak on the
ADU?
item 8. Yes, correct.
Okay, ADU. So we'll move you to the ADU item. Thank you, Michael. Our next speaker is Serena Haudicki.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Ms. Haudicki.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. My name is Serena Warake, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a longtime SunTran and SunLink commuter. I'd like to begin by thanking you all for your public service in not only maintaining our city, but progressing us forward in terms of equity, affordability, and sustainability. I'd also like to congratulate Vice Mayor Lane Santa Cruz on her new position and our new City Council member, Kevin Dahl. I'm excited and honored to see you serve our city. When this council voted to provide free transit fares back in May, you transformed the lives of many. I could easily name students, workers, parents, and grandparents in my community who benefited from a year of free transit, myself included. I know that you're all working hard to promote equity, affordability, and mobility in our city, and it shows through the countless plans you're progressing as a council, including P-CHIP, Move Tucson, Plan Tucson, and Complete Streets. The community input to all these plans has shown you how important transportation is to Tucsonans, of which almost 12% don't own a car and need an alternate mobility option. When this ordinance was first passed, our city was in a state of confusion and grief, and there could not have been a better time to implement free fares. But as we recover, Tucsonans still need this support from their city to get from point A to point B, especially those who depend on public transportation. Ironically enough, people living in areas of lowest economic opportunity are those who experience the longest commute times, according to the Southwest Fair Housing Council. So it would be wonderful for the city to lift at least one barrier to mobility by decreasing transit costs by continuing this year of free fares. Tucson Public Transit earned $8 million and $12 million in passenger revenues, respectively, in 2020 and 2019. With $47 million that the American Rescue Plan has allocated to Tucson, this city should continue to cover these costs and use the momentum that we have already to offer public transportation as a public service to all Tucsonans. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Serena. Really appreciate you coming to call.
I don't see her, Your Honor.
She's not here. She was our last speaker. So I think that we will move on with item 7.
Consent agenda items A through I.
Reports from the city manager on the consent agenda are received into and made part of the record. Mr. Clerk, you are requested to read the consent agenda today.
Your Honor, on this evening's consent agenda, item A is an intergovernmental agreement amendment with the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System Administration to provide funding for the southwest border high-intensity drug trafficking area. Item B is Tucson Code amending Chapter 20 relating to one-way streets and alleys, converting sections of Linden Street from two-way traffic to one-way traffic, and repealing Ordinance 11738. Item C is an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority of Pima County for the provision of fixed route transit services for designated areas of Pima County, the town of Marana, and the city of South Tucson. Item D is an intergovernmental agreement with the Regional Transportation Authority of Pima County for regional transit service improvements for fiscal year 2022. Item E is a final plat S21069 Century Park Research Center Phase 3 Blocks 18 and 19 Common Area C. Item F is a final plat S20032 La Alborada Apartments Lots 1 through 2. Item G is a final plat S21-040 La Estancia de Tucson Phase 2 Parcels 6 through 9. Item H is Parks and Recreation approval of Fort Lowell Historic Site Project Scope Expansion. Item I is Parks and Recreation approving Arizona State Parks Outdoor Recreation Grant applications for Joaquin Murrieta Park, Fort Lowell Park, and Command Sergeant Major Martin R. Gunny Barreras Memorial Park. Item J is ordinance approving appropriation of fiscal year 2020 through 2021 cash carry forward for the purpose of funding retention payment for city employees. That's the extent of the consent agenda, Your Honor.
Madam Mayor, I move to pass and approve the matter of the consent agenda.
Second.
So there's a second. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, Mr. Clerk, let's go to roll call.
Mr. Fimbres?
Aye.
Mr. Dahl?
Aye.
Mr. Cunningham?
Aye.
Mayor Romero?
Aye.
Mr. Kozaczek?
Aye.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye.
Ms. Santa Cruz?
Aye.
The items on the consent agenda are approved by a vote of 7-0. Item 8.
Public hearing, C8-2101, accessory dwelling units, UDC text amendment.
City Manager's communication number 346, dated November 9th, is received into and made part of the record. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time and place legally advertised for a public hearing on the proposed Unified Development Code text amendments to allow accessory dwelling units. On October 19th, 2021, Mayor and Council adopted amendments to the Unified Development Code to allow for accessory dwelling units in zones that allow residential use. This public hearing is scheduled to last for no more than an hour. Speakers are limited to 5-minute presentations. Please come forward when I call your name and make your presentation. State your name, whether or not you live in the city, whom you are representing, and whether or not you are a paid speaker. If you hear the same points that you were going to make being done by someone, please note that other people have said particular points that you wanted to make, and keep your comments to a minimum. We do have a long list of individuals that want to speak, so I want to make sure that we allow everyone the time to speak. So with that, we will start with Bill Mackey. Mr. Clerk, do you see Bill Mackey?
Yes, Your Honor.
Bill, you have to press *6 to unmute yourself. Alrighty, we're gonna move on.
Himself, Your Honor.
He's muting himself. So we're gonna
Yes.
move on to Kareem.
Hello.
Cooper. Mr. Mackey?
Hello.
Mr. Mackey?
Yeah.
Alrighty, we can hear you. You have 5 minutes. Please make sure to state
Sorry
your
for the
name.
delay.
That's okay. State your name, whether or not you live in the city of Tucson, whom you are representing, and whether or not you are a paid speaker. Go ahead.
Bill Mackey. I'm a Tucson resident. I'm not representing anybody, and I am not a paid speaker, although I was on the stakeholder group that met to create the ADU ordinance. I'm an architect, and the majority of my work in Tucson has been in historic neighborhoods. I work with private developers, homeowners, and public institutions. I've also taught at the School of Architecture for the past 15 years, and I'm writing or talking both as a professional and as a resident who cares deeply about Tucson. Number one, Tucson properties need flexible zoning restrictions. Zoning should be used to inspire creative development and not police perceived bad behavior. Number two, Mr. Kozaczek refers to numbers for an apartment project, which refer to interior square feet. The ADU code amendment refers to gross square feet. Exterior walls can add a significant percentage to the overall square foot of a project. especially if alternative and sustainable building materials are utilized like straw bale, adobe, rammed earth, or concrete insulated forms. All of these have very thick walls. Limiting the square footage to the proposed numbers will limit the materials utilized for the construction of the ADUs to more than likely wood frame and stucco. Number 3, the limit of size is prompted by the fear of a few people in a few neighborhoods near the university that real estate investors will add student housing. For the past 15 years, I've worked with real estate developers and individual homeowners. Single-family property homeowners ask me to design an accessory dwelling unit for their property. Developers do not. Number 4, the change in lot size seems arbitrary. City staff did analysis using data of residential properties and found a significant portion at the 7,000 square foot mark. How was the 8,500 square foot lot size determined as the threshold for the square footage requirements? Number 5, people speak about affordability with this amendment. Affordability is also being open to a variety of methods for dwelling. ADUs for extended families or caregivers or people with accessibility issues will be hindered by this square footage requirement. And number 6, it will ironically increase the cost of the unit per square foot. The size of an ADU is so small, it doesn't matter if it's 650 square feet, 850 square feet, or 1,000 square feet. No matter how much you reduce that square footage, it will probably cost the same. The stakeholder group and city staff worked very hard to create this amendment that was passed. They used data to create the amendment. They argued and discussed and disagreed. It is a complicated issue and a complicated process. It is difficult, as you know. I believe the amendment as created by city staff and the stakeholder group was a carefully vetted document. Please consider the points I raise. Please contact me with any questions. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Corrine Cooper.
I'd like to
Corrine
thank the
Cooper.
mayor.
Go ahead, Ms.
I'd
Cooper.
like to thank the mayor and city council for inviting us to speak again. My name is Cooper. I live in the city and I am an unpaid speaker of the Campus Farm neighborhood. This is my 3rd time testifying about the accessory dwelling unit proposal. I also participated in some of the stakeholder meetings. After a full meetings and hearings, it was very gratifying to see the AD proposal adopted by the City Council on October 19th. Perhaps you can imagine some of my frustration upon learning that the amendment placed on hold and was again set for hearing. Every single day we read in Tucson about the shortage of housing. Today we read about elderly residents of rental property having their leases non-renewed and being unable to find able replacement housing. We know that Tucson is short at least tens of thousands of rental units across all price points. Yet here we are again trying to support the ADU proposal into motion. As a longtime resident of Tucson, developers' proposals sailed through the planning and approval process. Yet this humble amendment has been held up again and again, now yet again. This amendment is one small way to increase the availability of rental property in Tucson. It won't solve the process, but it is one important step. No one neighborhood in Tucson is so precious that its interest is to hold up this necessary and very modest. It will particularly help elderly member community who wish to age in place, either by building an for a caregiver or a family member, or by moving ADU built by another family member. I understand the political process can be slow and ponderous, but in this case, enough is enough. Please move this proposal forward as it was originally passed and scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Polly Parks. Polly Parks. Mr. Clerk, do you see Ms. Parks?
Yes, Your Honor, just unmuted.
Okay.
Her phone may be muted as well, Your Honor.
Ms. Parks, you
Yes,
need to.
I'm here. I'm
Oh, there
here.
you go.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
you have
It's a
minutes.
two-step process. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and distinguished City Council members, my name is Polly Parks. I live in the city of Tucson. I am speaking as a property owner. I am not being paid. I urge you to reject the proposed ADU amendment that would deny reasonably sized, aging in place, and affordable housing alternatives in Tucson's superheated housing market. The proposed amendment guts the just passed ADU, ostensibly to cater to large developers of student housing worried about an undocumented threat of small investors building mini dorms adjacent to their high rises. The current ADU amendment has ample provisions for revising and, if necessary, correcting real-world implementation in 2 years. I am a senior citizen and I want to build a home that I can safely and comfortably age in. My current property is a 1924 shotgun duplex in the Santa Rita neighborhood, which I bought in May 2021. The property, zoned R3, has a land measure of 8,131 square feet. Due to the historical construction of the duplex, the dwelling is not conducive to renovating to aging in place, a single family, or building an addition. Prior to closing, I researched my options, but the Tucson zoning department said the only alternative was a guest house or addition to the current dwelling. Thus, I was greatly relieved to see the passage of the ADU amendment in October. My currently empty back lot is large enough to build a 1,000 square foot single-story dwelling to the ADU and ADA requirements. The current ADU amendment would allow me to safely and comfortably age in place while keeping the duplex on the rental market. When I can no longer age in place, the property would have a unit that was large and comfortable enough for a small family, an underserved sector needing affordable housing. The December 7 proposal before the City Council would not allow me to do that. The proposal increases the lot size square footage nearly 20% from the currently approved 7,000 to 8,500 square feet, coupled with a reduction in dwelling size of nearly 15%. No matter the lot size, that is cramped quarters. Then there is the proposal that the owner live in the primary dwelling for 1 year prior to ADU occupancy. Clearly, this discriminates against property owners who want to downsize or currently rent and want to build an owner-occupied dwelling on their property, whether they currently live on the property or not. Additionally, while my property does not have a guest house, it should be noted that the proposal could seriously constrict the ability of property owners to bring up to code and sunset their current guest house properties, which might exceed the square footage of the proposed amendment. I strongly urge the majority of the council to reject the poorly conceived amendment out of hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parks. W.J. Craig.
I'm here.
Hi, go ahead.
My name is Bill Craig. I live in Tucson and I'm representing myself and I'm not a paid speaker. The ADU program is written will virtually negate R1 zoning, which has kept the original qualities of historic neighborhoods intact. With only 30 to 40% owner occupation in the central city already, we are seeing additional problems coming about. 1,000 square foot at 1,000 square feet additions, real estate developers would easily outbid prospective owner occupants. The city needs to keep historic neighborhoods historic to make the draw that we have with people from outside the area coming to visit. I would like you to please not go with this new ADU program that you've created. Please rethink this. This plan will mostly just add density. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Michael Guyman.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Michael.
Thanks again, Mayor Romero, members of the Tucson City Council. My name is Michael Guyman. I am interim president and CEO of the Tucson Metro Chamber. I do live inside the city limits, and I'm not paid to be here. Before I start, I do want to congratulate the new members of the council and the re-elected members of the council. So congratulations go to Councilmember Steve Kozachik and Councilmember Richard Fimbris on being re-elected. And certainly want to welcome Councilmember Kevin Dahl to the council. Thank you and congratulations. So the chamber was a part of the stakeholders group, the diverse over 40 member stakeholder group that was part of the process to ultimately develop these ADU code text amendments. Our position on this issue has not changed, and I certainly support and am in agreement with the majority of the speakers so far that would like to see this ADU move forward unchanged. We supported the ADU code text amendment at the Planning Commission in partnership with MPA and Tucson Association of Realtors. We supported the code text amendment as presented to Mayor and Council in October. We sent a joint letter with MPA and the Tucson Association of Realtors in support of the ADUs as presented in October. And we continue to support the code text amendment unchanged in the form of option A that is in front of you tonight. I do want to point out some elements of the city manager's recommendation that I think are important and salient to this issue. First, as has been mentioned, this underwent an extensive public review process that included 9 stakeholder meetings with a diverse group of over 40 participants, 7 public meetings with over 400 participants, and 2 online surveys with more than 600 comments. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, this was in front of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission voted 9-0 to forward to Mayor and Council a favorable recommendation of the ADU UDC text amendment, as well as a recommendation to develop programs to make ADUs more affordable to Tucson residents and to conduct a review of the ordinance's efficacy after 24 months, which I think is a very important point, that we can approve this and after 2 years, tweak what needs to be tweaked. So we do have built into this amendment the ability to change what needs to be changed. But what the group worked on over a year was ultimately the product that you had in front of you in October, and something that was worked through great consensus and great collaboration. In addition, 2 online surveys were conducted, one to collect general input, and a second to poll community support for the ADU proposal. These surveys garnered over 600 responses, as I mentioned earlier. The poll showed that over 58% of the respondents either strongly or somewhat agree that the ADU proposal will benefit Tucson. So, similar to, I was a member of the Complete Streets Coordinating Council, and they obviously still exist and are still working through the Move Tucson program. That program is being built off of obviously the work of the great work of the Transportation Department, but also a great deal of survey and outreach in the community to build the recommendations. Those recommendations are moving forward as part of the Move Tucson program, and I know that this is a mayor and council that is very respectful of public process and public input. And so I ask that the mayor and council respect the process and the collaborative work of the stakeholders group that worked very diligently and very hard to come up with the code text amendment that the mayor and council adopted 6-1 in October, and to continue this code amendment, knowing that it can be reviewed in 2 years, knowing that there is a sunset date in 5 years, knowing that this ADU proposal, as mentioned by other speakers, will be beneficial to the citizens of Tucson. So I strongly encourage you to support option A, which is to keep the ADU that was adopted in October intact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Diana Lett. Diana Lett. Now we
Can you hear
can.
me?
Now we
Thank you.
can. Go ahead, Diana.
Honorable Mayor Romero, Vice Mayor Santa Cruz, and council members. My name is Diana Lett. I live at 1309 North First Avenue in Tucson. I am not a paid speaker, and I am not speaking as a representative of an organization, although, like several previous speakers, I was part of the ADU Stakeholder Committee. I've lived in the university area for 35 years. Multi-generational families were once common in my neighborhood. Working class families were once common in my neighborhood. That is less true now, primarily because of the massive expansion of the UA undergraduate student body. I ask you to carefully consider whether ADUs that dwarf our existing homes in the urban core will help the longtime homeowners who remain. I think the reverse may be true. Seniors aging in place, and I am one, typically live on small fixed incomes and are usually in no position to build ADUs. But they probably live next door to a rental property because 70 to 80% of the homes in Tucson's urban core neighborhoods are rentals. When the real estate investor who owns that rental builds something that doubles the density on the lot, property taxes go up for the investor and also for the senior living next door. That's not hypothetical. I've watched it happen to my neighbors. There is another way property taxes can go up, and that is the delisting of contributing structures in historic districts. I am aware that the State Historic Preservation Office informed PDSD staff that constructing a backyard ADU larger than the primary structure, even if the ADU is visible from the street, poses no risk of delisting. However, a different SHPO representative told a group of citizens the exact opposite just a few weeks earlier. At a minimum, that suggests that experts disagree. I've been around long enough to see properties delisted because experts disagreed about what constitutes an unsympathetic alteration to a historic home. When property is delisted, it is no longer eligible for the state historic property tax reclassification program. That entails a near doubling of the property taxes. If enough properties are delisted, an entire historic district can be delisted. That entails a near doubling of the property tax rate for all homeowners in the now defunct historic district. If you care about affordability, and you care about working families, and you care about seniors aging in place, then steep increases in property taxes are something you want to avoid. The motion before you allows you to make changes to the ADU text amendments that are carefully crafted to protect our irreplaceable historic districts, which are not just valuable to the homeowners living in them, but are valuable economically to Tucson. So the amendments, the motion that you have to vote on will allow larger ADUs on larger lots in other parts of town. Therefore, I urge you to vote in favor of the motion to limit the size of accessory dwelling units. I'm also going to comment on the ADU stakeholder process. Neighborhood representatives were vilified repeatedly during that process, and most of them dropped out. The idea that the product of the ADU Stakeholder Committee is somehow fair and reasonable and takes everybody's views into account is, in my opinion, highly questionable. Neighborhood representatives made proposal after proposal after proposal to create a formula that would benefit and protect historic neighborhoods and core urban neighborhoods while giving the flexibility of building a larger ADU to neighborhoods on the east side and the south side. And every single one of our proposals was dismissed out of hand. You now have an opportunity to rectify that error, and I hope that you will do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Let. Evren Sonmes. Evren Sonmes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, Evren.
Great. Good evening, Mayor Romero and members of the City Council. My name is Evren Sonmez. I live in the city limits. I'm not a paid speaker. I'm calling as a concerned citizen, and I also work for Living Streets Alliance, and we sent a letter earlier in the process voicing our support for the original size limits to allow for ADUs that cater to people and families with different needs. I'm asking you to move forward with the size limits as they were included in the original ordinance you approved back in October and as recommended by the city manager. This was the outcome of a nearly 10-month-long public process. And frankly, I'm disappointed that it came back before the mayor and council after 3 short weeks. I think keeping the original size limits is important to offer maximum flexibility. As you know, people have different housing needs at different stages of their lives. For example, when my husband and I first moved to Tucson, I was a graduate student and we lived in a 600 square foot apartment. When we decided to stay here post-graduation, we moved to an 800 square foot unit in a triplex, which is kind of in a similar place that the ADUs would occupy in the rental market. And living here, you know, we get to be in a very central neighborhood. We live within biking distance of our workplaces. We have a small yard where we can be outdoors and where we can entertain. But if one of us permanently works from home and needed the office space, or if we had a child, then a 1,000 square foot home would be ideal for us. And having ADUs built to that size would really increase our chances of finding a place to live in one of the neighborhoods where we want to be. So I'm just sharing with you my personal story, but I also recognize that there are lots of other people out there who need these flexible options, probably much more than I do. Just thinking about a single mom with a small child, or you know, like many people brought up earlier, an older adult who wants to age in place. And in fact, aging in place is one of the outcomes that ADUs are intended to facilitate. And I learned during those public meetings that extra space is actually critical for being able to incorporate accessible design features for mobility devices. So allowable ADU size actually does make a big difference. I live in Rincon Heights, and it's a university area neighborhood. And just to be clear, I'm not speaking on behalf of the neighborhood this evening, but I'm only sharing this information because I've also experienced the kinds of issues with, you know, loud parties that some of the neighbors brought up at previous meetings, and maybe it will come up again later this evening. So I just figured I would mention. I guess I just don't see why the larger ADUs would necessarily lead to more of these problems, because 1,000 square foot is nowhere near the footprint of a mini dorm, as some of the university area neighbors are concerned about, and rightly so. I guess, you know, we all know that it's a little difficult to predict how exactly things will play out, which is why the sunset date is very useful. But I've just been sort of rehashing some of the concerns I heard at previous meetings, and I'm wondering, wouldn't these smaller units potentially be more attractive to students and more likely to be used as short-term rentals, since they wouldn't really be the best housing option for small families? So it doesn't actually make sense to allow for a variety of sizes to accommodate a variety of people to help make our neighborhoods more diverse. So just some concluding thoughts. As you know, we're in the midst of a housing crisis in this country, and we have housing segregation documented in Tucson. We also know that our local housing stock is becoming increasingly unaffordable. And I believe what we really need is tools to help mitigate these social problems. And I think limiting the flexibility that the ADUs can offer would be doing ourselves a disservice. So I encourage you to readopt the original size limits, and thanks for listening. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sonmes. Corey Schultz.
Good evening.
Corey. Go ahead. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Romero and council members. First, let me congratulate Kevin Dahl on his new role as a city council member. Congratulations. I'm excited to meet with you as I'm a member of your Ward 3 constituency. And congratulations to Vice Mayor Santa Cruz. Thank you for all the great grassroots community building you've done over the past 2 years. It has been very impressive to see. So I am calling as a member of the City of Tucson. I'm also a licensed realtor, and I specialize in helping first-time homebuyers. This past few years has been a challenge in those regards. It's still accessible for people to buy homes, but it is becoming less accessible. Housing costs have gone up dramatically. Between 2007 and 2018, the median home price went up 7%. That's $211,000, the median home price in 2018. Between 2018 and 2019, it went up 10% to $232,000. Between 2019 and 2020, it went up 20%. It doubled. And now, in 2021, the median home price in Tucson, as of October, is $331,362. So from the beginning of the pandemic, this is March before everything shut down in 2020 now, I guess, housing costs have gone up 40%. We needed to activate affordable housing tools back when cost of living was going up 7% a year. Now we need to activate all affordable housing tools as quickly as possible to avoid massive displacement and gentrification, which we have seen in other cities throughout the country. We know that money flows to the most affordable communities with the best amenities. And as much as I hate to say it, that is Tucson these days. We will continue to see out-of-state investment whether we want to or not. And with that in mind, we need to allow families that currently live here to be able to buy homes with the tools and flexibility to make that home an investment that actually works for their family. If you have a family of 5 or 6, a multi-generational family where parents are raising children in high school with an older child that has a baby, you have 3 generations in the household. That older child may also have a partner. You might have 7 or 8 people needing to live on that lot. And this is a real story of a family I helped move from Tucson to Abra Valley. Because in Abra Valley, they could find a manufactured home with a secondary lot that they could put a mobile home on. They could not build an ADU on their lot in the city of Tucson. If they had that flexibility, they might still live in town. Or a friend of mine who bought a condo. He has some developmental disabilities. His parents helped him get this condo. He could not live independently. He now had to move back in with his parents, who chose to downsize after he left home because they didn't need that size of home. Now they're having to figure out what to do to make sure that their son can live with autonomy, with a sense of dignity, and have still the help that he needs to live a fulfilling life close to home. There are so many stories that come up like this. And the original ADU amendment that was approved in October allowed for people to utilize that flexibility. I also help people shop new build homes. People don't always go for the largest home. They go for the home that's best suited for their needs. So when I hear people in historic neighborhoods, and I live in the university area, say, I don't want that 1,000 square foot guest house in my neighbor's backyard or in my backyard, guess what? You don't have to put it in your own backyard. And your neighbor is going to put the guest house in their backyard that best meets their needs, and it'll be utilized in that way. Whether they need it for a home office or a small business, whether they need it for childcare or for their aging parents. I'm an only child. My parents don't live in Tucson. As they get older, they will come and stay with me. And I want them to stay in a place that is comfortable, that does not feel cramped, where I know that I can take the best care of them that's possible. This is this is an issue that isn't as simple as our historic neighborhoods will be hurt by this. It is, we need to develop a code that's simple enough for developers to build a business model around building ADUs and make it accessible for people to afford that ADU through a financing program. Thank you for your time. I appreciate all your hard work, and please reaffirm your decision in October.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Dionisa Cañez. Dionisa Cañez.
I do not see her, Your Honor.
Can you hear me?
Okay. Oh, we can. Is this Ms. Cañez? Ms. Cañez?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can you
we
hear me?
can.
Okay, my name is Dionisa Cañez Anderson. I'm an attorney licensed in Arizona. I'm not a paid speaker. I'm calling because the properties, specifically the properties in Las Vistas area, those particular lots are huge. We're talking 10,000 square feet, maybe even bigger than that. I would actually say to the council and mayor, why not make the maximum size of the ADUs even larger dependent upon the size of your lot? But be that as it may, I request that the council and mayor affirm the zoning amendments that were approved back in October. I also am going to shed some light that I have properties rented on Section 8. Many of the properties people call up and there's such a desperate need that people actually call me up and they cry saying that they've searched months trying to find a rental property. These are people on vouchers. Vouchers have an expiration date to them. They don't live forever, a voucher. The other thing too is I'm a family law attorney, and the need for a housing, people don't understand the significance of it. People can lose their custody. People can lose a visitation. People can lose their children if they do not have stable housing. That's how important this issue is. Again, asking the mayor and the council, affirm those changes that were made in October, leave them as it is, which is 7,000 square feet piece of land, goes with 1,000 ADU, and anything less than 7,000, I guess it's 700. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cañez. Joe Sillins? Joe Sillins.
Hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Congratulations to Kevin Dahl, our newest council member. It's great to have another climate champion on the council. Congratulations to Vice Mayor Santa Cruz and also to council members Fimbres and Kozaczyk for their reelection. Again, my name is Joe Sellens and I'm a resident of Ward 6. I am not a paid speaker. I have two aging parents, and I'm currently trying to convince my father to move into my main house sometime in the coming years. The main house is just over 1,000 square feet, and I think I can probably sell him on it, but if it was much smaller, I'm not sure that he would, and under the current circumstances, be willing to move into a house that was much smaller. My other parent, my mom, is living in Sacramento with my sister and my young nephew in a townhouse that's just over 1,000 square feet. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and it was basically at the top of her buying range. Right now, it's a little bit bigger than the apartment she was previously living in, and it's adequate, but any much smaller would be much less comfortable. As I understand it, the purpose of the ADU ordinance was to increase housing options for Tucson, and I think that dropping that max size down as is being discussed would greatly decrease those amounts of housing options, as has been mentioned by the other many of the other speakers on this hearing. I've been involved in the process as well, attending public meetings, the Planning Commission meeting, and the Mayor and Council meeting where the ordinance was approved. After the extensive public process, extensive research undertaken, I was also disappointed that this item was brought up again for consideration. I urge you to trust the process put in place to develop the ordinance, to trust your staff and Planning Commission, and to trust your judgment when you approve this item and keep the ordinance as is. I think that changing the ordinance now sends the wrong signal to residents wishing to take part in these types of processes. Taking time out of busy schedules and signaling that certain constituencies can come in late in the process and have an outsized influence in the ordinances under consideration. I think there's a lot of challenges, affordability, the climate crisis and whatnot. And I think calling this back before the Mayor and Council invites future challenges to the bold and decisive action that is needed in these trying times. Again, just like to urge you to adopt the ordinance as it was initially adopted, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Sillens. JP Pacheco. JP Pacheco.
Mayor and Council. My name is Jessica Pacheco. I'm a lifelong Tucsonan and I work at the University of Arizona. And I'm here today representing myself and have not been paid to speak. As the housing crisis continues to escalate around the country, we're especially feeling it in Tucson. And many Tucsonans, such as myself, are suffering through housing insecurity. I'm here today to implore Mayor and Council to pass the ADU update as it was presented to the Council by the stakeholder group, with the aims to create a clear goal of creating affordable housing options. When I hear people talking about protections for certain neighborhoods, I find that very alarming. Those are words of exclusion and they're words of privilege. By adopting the plan, which is a really thoughtful plan that really focuses on creating infill, not only will it help us to create additional housing while keeping our footprint as is, but there are other things like the cool roof stipulation that will also help with the island heat effect. And so we have to think about not only what's good for the people, what are the needs of the people, but also what's good for our environment. And I also want to point out that this is just one really small step in addressing our current housing crisis. And I beg, please look for other drastic and high impact ways to create affordable housing and additional housing. Because the truth of it is that our wages remain the same. Our wages are flat, even though the housing prices have doubled the last few years. And as a full-time employee of the university, and I have a quote-unquote good job, but so many U of A positions pay under $40,000 a year. Someone making $38,000 a year can only afford to spend $536 a month on housing. And people deserve to live in dignity. People deserve to live in healthy, clean spaces. When I was looking for housing options, I looked towards these different programs that offer assistance. And the truth is, I'm single and I'm an empty nester. And my salary is right on the cusp of, being able to qualify for these programs or not. And then the rub is, I've been saving for a down payment for a house for years. And I've saved so much now that I don't even qualify for some of these first-time homebuyer programs because I have too much saved. And so I have great credit. I have a sizable down payment saved up. My salary isn't much, so I can't afford a big monthly payment. But at the end of the day, even if I did find like that perfect combination, you know, in a house, I still can't compete with the all cash offers that are flooding our market. In October, the average days on market for a house was 18 days. So, you know, it is all cash around here. And creating ADUs will really help to alleviate some of the pressure that we're feeling. And the people really need to be taken into consideration. The plan, the stakeholder groups, it was a really thoughtful group. Was it contentious at times? Absolutely. But those kinds of debates they're good, healthy debates. And the survey went out, and you know, so many people, including myself, posted it all over social media, really wanting, you know, as many people as possible to participate. And we did. We showed up to the stakeholder meetings. We did the surveys. We did everything that was asked of us. And for, you know, this to be taking a step back now, I find incredibly alarming. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Pacheco. Sonia Norman. Sonia Norman.
I don't see her, Your Honor.
Okay. Colby Henley. Colby Henley. Do you see Mr. Henley, Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Your Honor.
Norman?
Can you hear me now?
This is
Colby.
Sonia Norman.
Okay, so let's Sonia, if you could wait a moment. We had called upon Colby, and then we'll go to you.
That's fine.
Perfect. So Colby, I think I heard you as well.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Colby Henley. I live within the city representing myself, and I'm not a paid speaker. So I'm speaking today in support of keeping the existing language and the size limits agreed to on October 19th. So I live about 4 blocks south of the university, quite familiar with the unresponsive and irresponsible landlords in the area and property managers here. Those concerns are legitimate, and they are unique to this area around the university. However, I also participated in the stakeholder groups leading up to the adoption of the ADU ordinance. And I do believe that staff did a good job of balancing residents' concerns with the well-established need for housing options that's been spoken about tonight and previously. I believe that by reconsidering these size limitations, we're chasing a mythical zero level of risk from unscrupulous developers. But the trade-off is that these additional limitations would substantially and unnecessarily constrain the usefulness of ADUs, as well as the number of residents who could benefit from them being built. So again, I ask that you keep the existing language and size limits from October 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sonia Norman?
Sure, thank you. So the first thing that I would like to say is that I'd like you to vote for the amendment. I'm hearing a lot of people say that 1,000 feet, that's great, but that's really a whole nother house. That's a large structure. And in light of the fact that we're trying to, we have the Cool Cities program to fill the whole inner part of the city with more and more structures is certainly going to make things warmer. And then the original idea about these ADUs is it's a little more income for someone that lives on the property, or if you want to have your grandparents back there, or your young family. But if you do have a young, small family, well, you want to have a little bit of yard. So you don't want everything to just be covered up with bricks and concrete. So those are my main reasons for saying I think that 1,000 feet is too big, and I would say go for limiting the size as you are proposing in the new amendment. The second thing that I want to bring up is I'm very concerned about corporate developers taking advantage of this, and essentially the city giving
carte blanche to redoing mini dorms, but instead of the mini dorms being in one building, you just kind of have a mini dorm now in two buildings. And so I know that there is a stipulation that the owner has to live for 1 year on one piece of the property, but I think we need to do something much stricter or forward thinking, I should say, and that would be to allow only 1 or 2 permits to construct an ADU by any one owner, by any one entity. So you cannot have an LLC just buy up a property, build on it, live there, or put kind of a surrogate owner there, then buy another property, buy another, because it is supposed to be the whole idea, half of the idea is to be helping people to stay on their property and have it be affordable for them to stay on their property. And I just feel that keeping the corporate owners out has not been sufficiently dealt with. So those are my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Norman. Mr. Greg Clark.
Thank you so much for hearing me. Congratulations to all y'all, and very sorry, or thanks for your service, and very sorry that the proposed increase to your salaries was denied. I know you guys all work super hard and have the city's best interests in mind, and thanks for everything you do. Related to this item, my name is Greg Clark. I live in the city of Tucson. I am not paid, and I encourage you to vote for option A and leave the previously approved ordinance intact without changes. I'll skip some of my points because they've already been made, but the accessory dwelling unit ordinance was adopted just 7 weeks ago by full mayor and city council. As you know, the vote was 6-1. And I feel that this reconsideration is an unfair attempt to undo a proper, legitimate, and successful process that was lengthy, well done, well researched, input. It was citywide, it was open. We have a big, diverse city with lots of varying lot sizes, zoning designations, diverse demographics, diverse land uses, needs, et cetera, et cetera. And we came to a fine conclusion that settles a lot of needs and benefits the entire city of Tucson. Now, I think this proposed reduction is unfortunate, and there was talk that 150 square feet is a fine, is not really relevant. Somebody can still use a 600 square foot ADU just as much as they can a 750. But I would offer that 150 square feet is it's not incidental. It's consequential. It's a fine size for a home office, a virtual classroom, an art or music or podcast studio, a fitness room, or so much else that we now have become, used to, and is now not just commonplace but necessary in this day and age. I mean, it's a decent size for a individual quarantine room if you're with your family and you come down with communicable disease. So it worries me that at this stage, a new concern or a new threat of, let's get rid of or thwart iBuyers or out-of-state investors and corporate interests, and that by reducing the size and the lot size, somehow we'll keep out, vulture investors. But I think that problem, while it needs a solution, and we all would agree that we'd love something to be done about that, iBuyers and investors and corporate entities flooding the housing market or buying up all the housing stock, this change in the ADU is not going to address it. But what it is going to do is harm all the people who are here, the people who have needs, like you have heard throughout the night. People, a small family with a adult child who might have his or her own family living under one roof, who now, given the housing market, can't afford to become a one-time or first-time home buyer just yet. And yet, maybe building a 750 square foot building in the back is the perfect thing for them and the whole family. So there are all kinds of things that families and current homeowners, current residents, current people who live in our neighborhoods throughout the city, who typically stay for decades, that they can benefit from this. And simply by playing fear to, oh my goodness, some unscrupulous people in 6 or 8 neighborhoods around campus, are going to grab windfalls. And we can't let these fears thwart the benefits that all of us residences, or those of us who live in Tucson, need. So let's do what's right for the people who own and live in the homes in Tucson now. Let's help families and homeowners across the city, and let's keep this ordinance as it was passed in October. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Elaine McPherson.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Elaine. I am not a paid speaker. I live in Palo Verde neighborhood in Ward 6. I am calling and will be affirming most of what speakers have been saying, which is to keep the sizing as is, as was built by the stakeholder group. More available housing means our neighborhoods can be healthier and more stable. Many of us have talked about the housing crisis, which I will kind of reinforce here. Lots of families are priced out of housing. They're living on the street, sleeping on couches. And bottom line, for neighborhoods to be healthier, we have to be able to welcome new neighbors into our neighborhood. I live in an ADU with my boyfriend. He is a welder with a modest salary. I work in nonprofits, so I also have a modest salary. And our landlord have kept our rent very low relative to the market. So that's, the reason why we are set up for financial stability. And we have the option to plan a life that other families often, cannot due to the housing crunch. I ran an eviction prevention program, and I worked with lots of families who were making, 30% of the median income, and they had to seek out the absolute cheapest rentals in the market. I have one woman I'm thinking of in particular. I will not share her name, but I'll pretend her name is Lydia. She had to move after being evicted, and she had to fight to keep her younger sister enrolled in a quality school in their old neighborhood after they were displaced by eviction. She lived in a multi-generational household with her mother, her own 2 kids, and her younger sister. But again, the cheapest places she can find were in these other small pockets of the city. Typically, the cheapest places I would help families look for would be in large apartment complexes or trailer parks, often with terrible reputations for exploitation and crime. And, this bottom line was far away from where her sister's school of origin was, in a better neighborhood with more localities. So for a family living in a casita or an ADU with an affordable rent, like in a neighborhood like mine in Palo Verde, it would be life-changing. They would be near a school, near a grocery store. They would have lots of, proud homeowners who are, keeping the neighborhood vital and alive. And she wouldn't have had to have been displaced. And maybe her sister could have continued, school without interruption of an eviction. So this kind of is a bigger problem. This is happening all over the place. The cheapest places to rent are often in small, segregated pockets of the city. These are often distant from critical resources. They only house the most low-income residents. And neighborhoods like mine, which are beautiful and, have access to grocery stores. I'm near Catalina High School. There's gorgeous public amenities. Having a casino with a larger size would mean that people like Rocio could rent and affordably be able to live in these neighborhoods integrated with the community and not be forced to seek out the lowest possible rent in these tiny pockets, of poverty. It's about desegregation, allowing communities to integrate with each other. And my situation shouldn't be an exception. I shouldn't be lucky to have this affordable unit in a healthy neighborhood. This should be something that's accessible to everyone. So I, of course, as I'm sure you have gathered, I think we should, keep the sizing as was proposed. I think it's great to be concerned about, exploitative investment. That's always a good priority, but like has been said a couple times here, the sizing is not going to prevent that from happening. And so I think ultimately we need to keep the housing supply higher and allow this sizing ordinance to move forward without intervention so we can have more neighbors. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate Miranda Schubert. Miranda Schubert.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Miranda Schubert. I'm a resident of Feldman's and I'm an unpaid speaker. Your local YIMBY chapter, Tucson for Everyone, has over 240 signatures on a petition that asks you to stand by the ADU ordinance as initially approved, also known as option A. Side note, I'm really sorry we're still talking about ADUs. It's a waste of your valuable time and energy, and it disrespects the hard, careful work that went into the originally approved code amendment. I think the silver lining here is that we've been able to hear from so many important and shared concerns from such a diverse range of callers during this public hearing. It's really been incredible. Just hearing the same concerns over climate change, housing affordability, taking better care of our neighbors. So just a few key points. Reducing the overall size of ADUs will not make them less lucrative for short-term rentals or student housing. In fact, such restrictions will likely inadvertently pigeonhole ADUs into the short-term and student rental market because 650 square feet does not provide enough livable space for families, aging parents, or folks who rely on wheelchairs or other assistive mobility devices. We've heard from several callers about the importance of ADA requirements. Other myths to debunk, 1,000 square foot ADU doesn't dominate a 7,000 square foot lot. It's only 14% of the area, or less than half of a tennis court. So really not a huge size. The current ADU ordinance will not facilitate the next generation of mini dorms because the language is actually significantly more restrictive in terms of height and size. 2 bedrooms can't be a mini dorm. Additionally, this ordinance will not jeopardize historic statuses since it has nothing to do with building facades. And just because an ADU can be larger than the front structure doesn't mean it will dominate the lot or even be seen from the street. For example, on my block here in Feldman's, there are at least 3 properties where the back ADU is at least 500 square feet larger than the front structure, and you can't see it from the street. Prop 207 is not a concern at this time, thanks to Councilmember Cunningham's request to add a sunset date. Some other callers have also noted the 24-month review period ADUs, which we know is a much needed housing size across the city. They also keep our land use more similar to pre-ADU times. Those seemingly innocuous land use policies are known to facilitate systemic racism. How does racism factor here? 2021 White House memo notes that research has connected exclusionary zoning such as lot size, height, and size restrictions to racial segregation and measurable disparities. Additionally, Habitat for Humanity recommends diversifying the types of homes allowed in communities in order to make them more racially and economically inclusive. Zoning modifications such as the ADU ordinance in its current form can begin deconstructing harmful systems. The current ADU ordinance uses a neighborhood scale development approach to make a small incremental step toward increasing our housing stock. No neighborhood can be exempt from change, and no neighborhood should experience sudden radical change. If we want to protect our environment and water resources while making the most of what's within our city limits, neighborhood scale infill is our path. On a personal note, my fiance Amanda and I hope to build an ADU on our lot in the future for my soon-to-be mother-in-law Katie, who's currently living in a big house on the east side and getting ready to retire. She wants to travel, host guests, spend time with family and loved ones. She loves having people over for dinner. The ADU ordinance that was approved in October allows us the flexibility to make the most of our lot, which is in a beautiful neighborhood and a convenient walkable location. Like many Tucsonans, I see the scars of predatory development decisions. I totally get the distrust. However, it was recently noted that we currently have a shortfall of 9,000 to 12,000 housing units. If they aren't going in neighborhoods that are close to quality services, opportunities, and schools, and they aren't going to the outskirts of town exacerbating ecological destruction, then where should they go? And just a final note, 2 of the options that are on the table for a vote tonight were added to the meeting materials just 4 days ago without any public input. These last-minute changes exclude the general public, and they also undercut the democratic process. I know a few speakers have already noted that. Do we really need another Reed Park and Zoo situation on our hands? Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate your hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Schubert. The hour we just completed an hour for the public hearing, but I do have 2 additional speakers. That's just an additional 10 minutes or less. So colleagues, I'm going to go ahead and call on these 2 last speakers, if that's okay with you. Wesley Cray. Wesley Cray.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Clerk? Wesley?
Hello?
Hi. Is this Wesley Cray?
This is Wesley Cree. I'm a Tucson resident and homeowner in Arroyo Chico neighborhood. I'm not being paid to speak tonight. And there have been so many wonderful words already said in the support of this ordinance that I will keep it very brief. But I did want to express my disheartenedness by the recent reconsideration after an initial 6-1 vote in October. I feel that it sets a bad precedent for our democratic process. And I don't think 150 square feet justifies opening up this whole long process again. As many people noted, it's been a very thorough process. I think ADUs are a vital housing solution in the midst of an already critical housing shortage, not to mention a potential pending wave of evictions that we're about to experience. As Bill Mackey so eloquently pointed out, ADUs are developed by homeowners, not developers. An ADU ordinance would help to drive independent development of starter homes, the ideal size for couples and small families. Is development is not investing in this small residential scale because it isn't profitable enough model for them. And we have local and nationwide data that supports this. The proposed ADU ordinance is designed specifically to fill a critical middle housing gap in Tucson. As for historic neighborhoods, there have been case studies in other cities like Seattle, which have disproven all of the concerns stated by local opponents to this ordinance. What we can all agree upon is the fact that Tucson is experiencing a housing shortage and decreasing affordability. As we've heard over and over again tonight, that is real. If we want our city to continue to be accessible and affordable for current residents and the next generation, we need to start backing solutions now, and this ordinance is one of them. I request that the mayor and council affirm their October decision. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Wesley. And our last speaker is Daniela Gilliland. Daniela Gilliland.
I did not see Daniela on, Your Honor.
Okay. That was our last speaker. So, colleagues, that was our last speaker. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
There's a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
There is. Alrighty, so there's a second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. So the public hearing is closed. I am going to call on Vice Mayor Santa Cruz to open the item and then go to Councilmember Cunningham. Vice Mayor Santa Cruz introduced the concept of ADUs along with our colleague Paul Durham. So I want to make sure that I give this space and open this space to the Vice Mayor to talk to us about what initiated this process, talk about the process, and then allow my colleague, Councilmember Cunningham, and any others to elaborate on your points of view. So, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and I want to thank all the folks who participated and called to the audience and who have been engaging in this process for over a year now. So yeah, to give some context, back in 2019, the Ward 3 office under the leadership of Councilmember Durham and his staff reached out to PDSD to ask why we didn't have an option to develop ADUs under the current code. The issue was brought forward to the office from a group of older constituents who were interested in aging in place and multi-generational living. He then reached out to our office to determine how we could best collaborate and address this issue and bring it before mayor and council. And that is how we gave direction to staff to initiate this public process for ADUs in the city of Tucson. The new lot restrictions being proposed do not affect all wards equally. There are areas such as in historic barrios, which is different than like historic neighborhoods, where ADUs provide better opportunities for community and family cohesion, and that is currently allowed than what is currently allowed in our guest house ordinance. ADUs are an important option, as we've heard by many of the speakers, for families looking to age in place, for those who need culturally appropriate multi-generational housing, for those who take care of disabled or elderly relatives. Our staff worked with PDSD to look into spatial analysis in Ward 1, and within our historic barrios, we have a smaller scale pattern of development. We have over close to 8,000 of our parcels are smaller than 7,000 square feet. About 6,000 of our parcels are between 7,000 and 8,500 square feet, and lots under 8,500 square feet represent the vast majority of our lots, especially within the more historic neighborhoods, our barrios. I personally live in a rental that's 1,000 square feet with 4 children, ages 14 to 3, because that's what I can afford. And I don't see how families over the size of 2 can live in anything smaller than that. I don't want to see neighborhoods being disproportionately burdened due to last minute size restrictions. I also don't want to send mixed messaging to our staff and our community about our commitment to incentivizing the development of housing, climate adaptation, and about equity. It's not wise to make a policy that centers the most privileged and affluent parts of our city who can afford to live in a romanticized historic past, while placing a burden on those who could benefit from ADUs the most. This is why we keep talking about equity and why we need a common understanding of racism, specifically as it relates to equity and the tools and policies needed for transformative change. Trying to take a colorblind approach to governance allows these racial inequities to continue, and therefore local government needs to explicitly target, these both like racial and economic inequities in our policymaking. If we continue to perpetuate inequity by relying on the so-called will and backroom dealings that benefit a vocal minority and further disenfranchise not only marginalized communities, but public processes that we put in place and entrusted people with their time. What are we doing? I believe that we need to honor the ordinance as passed by Mayor and Council back in October after our public process and the option that was developed through consensus building. This option accounted for the multiple needs across the city and is the compromise that our stakeholders made to move us forward. So those are my comments on the context and how I look at the proposal before us. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I know that both Councilmember Cunningham and Councilmember Kozachik presented some options. So I want to allow for both Councilmember Cunningham and Councilmember Kozachik to talk about their point of view as well.
After we passed it, I got some input from neighbors on the east side, and those are my constituents. And a lot of their concerns were what happened? Why are we allowing? A lot of the perception was that we were allowing basically a rezoning to certain properties where they were very concerned about another house being built. So I said, all right, we'll talk about it more. I voted for this original plan, and I wanted to hear some more about Mr. Kozachik's concerns and some of the other neighbors' concerns. So I asked around and tried to get as much information as I could. I'm not sure that the 8,500 650 limit is actually good. I actually don't know if that's a good place either. In discussions, there's so many different pieces to this, but the biggest part is I think that what different neighborhoods need around the city is different. That sounds terrible, but you know what I mean. I mean, in other words, it's not just it's no one size fits all in every neighborhood, and that's part of the issue. I actually take heart to a lot of the things that were said in the public hearing this evening. You're right. Not affording an opportunity for someone to build an 800 to 900 square foot ADU on their own property is important. I also think that having the provision where someone can't, having the provision where we have to police who lives in the unit is ungovernable. I don't even know if I agree with that. I think we really want to look at kind of the proportions of the lots and what are we actually building. I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Kozachik. I'd say the one thing I really didn't really compute with this ordinance for me was the cliff. We picked 8,500. And to me, that's a little interesting, where we picked 7,000. So what about the person with like 6,800 square feet versus the person with 7,000 square feet? Their lots virtually the same size, and they can't build the 1,000 feet. The other concern I have is we've got some setback provisions and we have the 70% provision. I think that's a good thing, but I'm not sure that. I wish we would have just had some type of sliding scale where we could have seen kind of some progression depending on lot size, instead of having one arbitrary point. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Madam Mayor, at your pleasure, I'd like to turn it over to Councilmember Kozachik.
Okay, thank you. I agree. We've heard a lot of good input from both sides, from all sides of this, and I appreciate the public's engagement. Paul is right. We cannot create a one-size-fits-all zoning code when our city is so vastly different from one end to the other, top to bottom. And so our job is to balance those interests. people living in the immediate proximity to campus are not privileged. Most of them are living on very small lots, and most of them are living in neighborhoods that are 70% rental or higher. We have a market intensity right now that is an incentive for out-of-state interests and investors. To Mr. Henley's position, no option is without risk. That's not the goal. The goal, again, is to soften the risks. I will say this, staff presented and the public process wound up with one proposal. I presented another one, staff then came back with yet another one. Each one of them draws an arbitrary line in the sand at either 7,000 or 8,500 square feet, and then allows a certain height or certain size of ADU to be built. And as Paul just correctly said, that line in the sand creates a cliff. So if you are now under the, and my proposal is equally guilty of that. And so I'm heading in a direction here. So according to staff's most recent proposal, that line in the sand is 8,500 square foot lot size. That means if you have a lot size of 8,400 square feet, you are treated fundamentally a 250 square foot penalty versus if your lot size is 200 square feet larger. And so what I wish staff had come up with to begin with is it was a little more creative solution, and that is what Paul and I, independently of one another, came up with, that I think really touches all of the bases that people are concerned about, and that is this. If your lot size is 6,500 square feet or smaller, you're allowed a 650 square foot ADU. Then you are allowed an ADU of 10% of the lot size on a sliding scale up to 1,000 square feet. Now, the conversation about Prop 207 is not speculative. We are in litigation with multiple LLCs right now around campus over Prop 207. Our sunset clause does not solve that because what happens is if we allow an ADU to be built, you can't scale that back after the fact. You can't go back in 2 years from now and say you got to knock that down by 200 square feet. Once it's built, it's built. So what I'm suggesting is that we close this loop and say 6,500 square feet gets you and smaller gets you a 650 square foot ADU. 10% scaling up. So if your lot size is 8,600 square feet, you get an 860 square foot ADU. If it's 1,000 square feet, you get 1,000 square, or 10,000, you get a 1,000 square foot ADU. That eliminates the cliff. It means that the ADUs are scaled to the lot size. It is substantially more flexible than any of the options we have on the table right now, A, B, or C, mine included. And so that is where I would like the council to wind up. It addresses the concerns about lot size. It addresses the concerns about scaling. And it addresses the concerns that we have. We are trying to craft a zoning ordinance that is simply not going to work the same way all over town. In 2 years from now, if we want to come back and say, look at for instance, the people out in wards 2 and 4 have 14,000 square foot lots, and we need to give them a larger option, then we can increase the ceiling. But so far, everybody's recognized 1,000 as the ceiling. And all I'm suggesting is let's set 650 as the floor and allow 10% scaled increases between 6,500 and 1,000.
Any of my other colleagues want to include their either questions or comments in the conversation?
Well, I like the idea of the sliding scale, but you know, again, some of the speakers spoke to me pretty good, and I think that so we've got some situations where in certain neighborhoods that aren't in Ward 2, actually, it sounds like where Lane's at, we probably need to get some, I wish we could figure out a way to get some flexibility so that if we're going to do a scale like that, that people can still get extra square footage when needed with permission of neighbors or something. And do we have that in there? Is that already in there? Does that already exist? Like I heard about DDOs. Does that provision already exist as written?
Is there someone from Planning Development Services
Yes,
to respond to
Honorable
this?
Mayor
Scott?
and Council. Yes, Honorable Mayor and Council, Scott Clark, Director of PDSD. The DDO process does not currently include the ADUs, so that would be another process that went back to Planning Commission and then Council.
You know, I'll add some of my comments on this because there has been so many conversations and a highly thorough process that has taken more than a year to get to. I think that having ADUs in our city, being able to create the codes to build casitas in our city is already a win. It's good. It's a wonderful place to be in. But as I mentioned in my State of the City speech, ADUs are an important step in addressing our affordable housing crisis. We all heard the speakers at tonight's public hearing and the previous public hearing, October 19th, that affordable housing is a crisis in our community. And I think a previous speaker talked about 64% of the lots in the city are under 8,500 square feet and 38% of them are less than 7,000 square feet. And so we are going to, whether we want to or not, we are going to limit most of the ADUs that families are going to be able to build to less than 1,000 feet. And what happens with that? Traditionally, in low-income areas and traditionally historically disinvested areas of our city, most of the lots are less than 7,000 square feet. So in areas where we want to see investment, where we want to be able to create the possibility of creating multi-generational housing, and where I believe we need it the most, we're going to be disallowing that additional casita that frankly you need more space than 750 square feet or 650 square feet to be able to have a grandma that needs additional space because they have specific needs in terms of movement in that area. So it is concerning to me that the areas where we want to see this investment, where we want to be able to create the additional opportunity for affordable housing, that we are going to be preventing with the idea on the table right now. You know, my personal preference would be to keep the ordinance as we voted on it and approved on October 19th. I believe that it will help us disrupt the housing crisis and the availability of additional affordable housing in our community. It will also disrupt systemic racism, which has been created before by codes and development codes throughout our country, and Tucson is no exception to creating development codes that limit areas of opportunity for certain areas of our city. I think that we have created a sunset. We have created the opportunity to come back and review the success or failure of what we have on the books already. But it is the right thing to do to move forward. I think some of my colleagues have mentioned we've gone round and round, we're exasperated about this, and there really was a thorough community process where our planning commission, based on the input and feedback of those people participating, passed a recommendation to Mayor and Council 920. Unanimous recommendation that we approved back in October in order to be able to create this opportunity for our families. I know that Housing Community Development is looking forward to the ADUs so that we can create a model to create affordability. And lastly, we heard from one of the speakers that if we start limiting the square footage on lots that are smaller than 7,000 or less than 8,500, what we're solving will be the opposite. If we have ADUs that are less than 1,000 square feet, we are going to actually have more single people living in this ADUs. We're not going to be able to have a single mother head of household like our vice mayor is, that has 4 children, and it's a 1,000 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. So we will be actually creating the opposite of what we want to create, to be able to have enough square footage to create the affordability that we want to create. So I would ask my colleagues to, to keep our original intent, to keep the original recommendation by the Planning Commission and the stakeholders that worked really hard to get us to the point that we found ourselves on October 19th. I do see the Vice Mayor's hand up. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, no, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to add something to the conversation about how, aside from a sliding scale, making it more difficult to create, model units so that if a friend of mine, or a friend, built an ADU that was 758, whatever it is, that then I could use similar plans, to build that ADU. You just make it more difficult to create plans or use other people's housing plans as you're getting those permitted. So I think that's one consideration that's important, because I know I was going through that process when I was helping my parents build their house. And I think lastly, I guess the piece that I keep having a hard time with is, even in my position, and I know the public processes that we have, in the city, and how I sometimes see how they don't work for my stakeholders or my constituents, and how I am, constantly trying to bring them in or have different kinds of meetings that are accessible to them to inform me, so that then I can inform any kind of public process that's happening. So I feel like I'm doing my due diligence in amplifying those voices. So I think it's important to challenge all of us in our roles, in the way that we're showing up to govern, to do some of that work, because it's really frustrating to have gone through this public process and have been doing the work with our constituents in Ward 1 to hear from them about what were the issues and the needs that they needed for us to consider, to then all of that work to just go out the window. And then now having, I feel like we're just not upholding a democratic process and how we do our public processes. And then now I think I heard a third and fourth option for us to consider tonight, and I haven't ever seen it. I can't even study it or look at it or take it back to folks to see if it works or not. And so again, I feel even more unsure about what's being put at the table. I similarly feel that we should, and
take a leap of faith with what we put out there from the beginning, trust that process, and then we'll have the opportunity to review it 2 years from now and learn some lessons, you know, and then keep moving forward. So with that, Mayor, I move that to reaffirm ordinance number 11890, reinstating the original option that was developed during the year-long public process.
There is a motion. Is there a second? Motion dies.
I'll offer a substitute motion to adopt a sliding scale that if the lot size is 6,500 square feet or smaller, a 650-foot or ADU is allowed, and that scale will increase by 10% increments up to a maximum ADU size of 1,000 square feet.
So the first motion died for lack of a second. There is a substitute motion. Is there a second to the substitute?
I second it.
There's a motion and a second, and I do see Councilmember Lee's hand up, as well as Councilmember Dahl's.
Thank you, Mayor. I put my hand up before the motion started, so I'm having to reconfigure what I was going to say a little bit. This has been a really challenging conversation because, as the speakers alluded to, as all of our colleagues have alluded to, it's really challenging to take all of the different considerations into this decision and the differences between by the university out here on the east side and make something that's going to work for everyone. I was going to say that I like the flexibility concept. I think we need the flexibility concept. I also hear what the vice mayor is saying with standard sizes and models. So it's just a really challenging item. I am glad that we did bring it back because, as Councilmember Cunningham said, we received additional questions after the vote, and I think it definitely warranted additional discussion. So I forgot what I had originally put my hand up for because it was before the motion started. So that was just some thoughts that are going through my head.
Councilmember Dahl.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a real interesting discussion, and there are some commonalities here. We all recognize that we need more housing, that ADUs are part of the solution, and we want to legalize ADUs because in many neighborhoods there are ADUs. We call them guest house, but they're really ADUs. I wasn't part of the process, but I want to point out that good things sometimes take a lot longer than 10 months or 2 years, and we should take the time we need to get this right. And maybe we'll pass something tonight, but when people who talk to me about there hasn't been enough time, when I said, well, shall we take more time? They said no. So that confused me. I like the 10% solution. I think it's a good start. I'm very concerned about the size of 1,000 square feet with homes are smaller than that. Constituents pointed out to me is that that's a de facto R1 to R2 rezoning, and people are moving into R1 neighborhoods wanting to live in R1 neighborhoods. Or have lived in R1 neighborhoods for a long time. I really like ADUs. I have a guest house. It's been important for my family, and I wouldn't want to deny that to anybody. And I think this is the 10% solution is good. I'm very concerned about Prop 207, and if we get it wrong, if we decide that 1,000 square foot in university neighborhoods is catastrophic, or at least a big problem, or a problem at all, we can't go back. Because of the state's limitation on liabilities for downzonings. So I think it's important to err on the side of caution in this case, and that's why I'm supportive of the substitute motion for 10% solution. Thank you. And by the way, thanks to everybody who contacted me ahead of time. I am the new guy, and it's been a lot of information to take in, but I was following from afar and had heard concerns from afar, and especially after it was passed last time. Thank you.
Colleagues, I just want to again talk about, and we're going to vote right now and see where the votes land. But I just want to mention that this is the type of well-intended action that results in certain areas of our city and the residents that live in those areas being the beneficiaries of investments that contribute to increasing property value and generational wealth at a rate that is different and disproportionate than other areas. Zoning laws have been used to discriminate, and this could contribute to that discrimination and the history of discrimination that had happened because of those zoning laws. We all remember what different cities and jurisdictions throughout the country did to discriminate on people of color being able to live in red-lined areas. So people that have bigger lots in areas of our city that are historically wealthier areas are going to be able to build 1,000 square foot casita and be able to lease it to a family. And those that live in areas of the city that have 7,000 square feet that have traditionally and historically been disinvested in will not be able to do that. So as well-intentioned as it is, this particular step will not move us in the right direction when it comes to equity. When it comes to sustainability, we need to see additional density created in our city. Long gone are the days that we can build huge houses and huge lots. We've started as a council, as a mayor and council, we've started creating density. And I know that many people have pushed against creating density in our city of Tucson for whatever reason, because they live in historic neighborhoods, because they want to continue seeing our gorgeous mountains, for whatever reason. Because of sustainability issues, we have to make sure that we continue creating density. And so I'm concerned, to be honest with you. I know that it is incumbent on this mayor and council to listen to the recommendations of the different processes that we use, and then we have the authority to be able to, do as we think is best to represent our communities. But I think it's a mistake not to follow the recommendations of the Planning Commission. The process, the conversations from different stakeholders in our community are important. And so I think that over time, decisions such as these lead to continued structural lack of investments and removes a lot of families from being able to create their living situations and generational wealth as other families in other areas of our community can. So with that, I'll just pass it over to Councilmember Dahl, and then we'll roll call on this.
Thank you, Mayor. When I understand redlining, and I live in a neighborhood where people of color were not allowed to live here unless they were working for the person in whose house they lived in. That's still on my deed, though it was outlawed in the 1960s. But it seems to me that this 10% solution means that we're just discriminating against smaller lots wherever they are, and giving some advantage to larger lots wherever they are. And there's larger lots in my ward, and there's smaller lots in their ward. But I want to say that I hear you, and I'm open to learning more about what we can do to achieve the equity that we want to live in Tucson. And before the 2 years is up, if this passes, let's look at some solutions and maybe adding the DDO process so that maybe increasing the size to 14% in 2 years, but redlining in a good way the university neighborhoods. I don't know. And I am the new guy, so please excuse my ignorance in some of these areas. But as best I can see it, and from the people in my ward who objected to the large size in these neighborhoods, that's why, I'm supporting it. Thank you very much for this time.
Council colleagues, I would suggest that we amend the motion to review instead of 2 years in the next 12 months so that we can see what the effect of this solution. It sounds like it's a solution that has the majority. So what I would suggest, if there's a friendly amendment to the motion so that we can review the effect of this decision and how it's moving forward in terms of creating that affordability that we're looking for. Councilmember Kozaczek, you made the motion. Would you be open to a amendment to review in 12 months instead of 24?
I would ask Mr. Rankin. I don't believe we're allowed to, because the only thing that we took under reconsideration was what we're voting on. But Mr. Rankin?
Councilmember Kozaczek, Honorable Mayor and Council, you could review it in 12 months. I don't think what the mayor was suggesting was a reconsideration. It was just to review how things are going and in case there are additional changes that you want to make going forward.
And that's fine, Mike, but the review period was an explicit piece of the original motion that was passed. And when the reconsideration was requested, all it was reconsidered was the size. And you were very clear in saying that's all you can consider.
Yeah, but the time when you review, as a legislative body, you can review your codes anytime you choose to. So I don't think that is implicated by the reconsideration.
Then fine. If you're not going to throw a wrench in, then I'm fine with the 12 months.
Okay.
So you would
So the friendly amendment to review in the next 12 months versus 2 years. Councilmember Cunningham.
Look, I want to get this passed tonight, but really, if we're going to, when we review, and I want to start the conversation now, we got to have some type of amendment where people can increase their size and get like a variance or something in there. I mean, we already have DDOs in the code. We already have variances in the UDC. We have all this other, we have the Board of Adjustment. We have 5 different avenues that already exist that could have been considered here. And that's kind of where my frustrations are. Lane made a good point. The lots in her ward are a different size, and that's on me. I didn't consider that. I didn't. I mean, I was trying to balance constituents, and I hate policy cliffs, and everyone knows that. And so that's kind of one of the things that don't make sense here. But you're right in that if we're trying to build density with multi-generational housing on smaller lots, then we've got to be able to figure out an avenue to do that but in other neighborhoods where they don't want that, they can say, hey, look, that's the code. We've got to balance that out. That's not what exists here. I want to pass this tonight, but I'm willing to work right away on a plan or on a process where anybody who's in that small group, that 650 group, that under 700 group can go, look, I need an extra 100 square feet, and we need to have an easy and simple process that's community friendly to do that. So that's kind of my last piece of input here.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anyone else before we vote?
So why isn't 14% on the table like Councilmember Dahl said instead of the 10%?
Because it's not the motion.
So I don't know, Councilmember Dahl, if you wanted to add a friendly amendment for 14% or.
No, I'm not going to accept.
I mentioned that as a possible 2-year review thing, that we can go from 10 to 14% without any impact. If we go from 14 to 10, we have the liability of anybody who wants to sue us. And so I was arguing that the 10% is a cautious first step, and that we can move it up if we find that there are problems. And I love Council Members Cunningham's suggestion that we start right ahead with some of these other opportunities for people to get exemptions, not just on an individual basis, I think by neighborhood or something, if that's possible. Again, I'm so new, maybe you can't be possible, but that was why not 14% right now. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Alrighty, so there is a motion and a second for the motion. There was a friendly amendment to do a review in 12 months instead of 24. That was accepted, and the seconder of the motion accepted that friendly amendment. So now we're ready to to vote for tonight. So Mr. Clerk, let's go to roll call.
Mr. Kozaczek?
Aye.
Mr. Cunningham?
Aye.
Santa Cruz?
I am not supporting these overly complicated size restrictions that are going to specifically impact barrios in Ward 1.
Mayor Romero?
No.
Lee?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Mr. Fimbres?
Motion.
Aye.
Oh. Okay, motion passes. Motion passes. What is it, 5-2?
Yes,
and I'm looking forward, thank you, Mr. Clerk, I'm looking forward to getting to work, as Councilmember Cunningham said, to take a look at how we continue working towards just an equitable ADU ordinance that will allow some flexibility to those families that need it. So Mike, I see you. Mike Rankin, I see you. Did you want to say something, or you're good? Okay. Thank you all. I know these policy decisions sometimes are complicated, and there's competing interests and concerns throughout the city. So I appreciate these civil and good discussions with all of us. With that, Ordinance 11890 passes by a vote of 5-2, and we move on to item 9.
Zoning C92113, John H. Beck House, HL 1830 North Potter Place, R2 to HLR2, City Manager's Report, Ordinance Adoption, Ordinance number 11888.
City Manager's communication number 366 dated December 7th is received into and made part of the record. This is a request to designate the John H. Beck House at 1830 North Potter Place as a historic landmark. The historic landmark designation changes the zoning from R2 to HLR2 zoning. The rezoning site is located approximately north of Elm Street and east of Campbell Avenue. There is no proposed development associated with this historic landmark designation proposal. The zoning examiner recommends approval of HLR2 zoning. Staff recommends approval of HLR2 zoning and adoption of the ordinance. Is the applicant or the representative of the applicant present? Mr. Clerk, do you know if the applicant or representative is present in the meeting?
I don't see him, Your Honor.
Okay.
Okay, if he's not, I'd move that we begin the HL designation process. It's a very cool house, been around for 60+ years. I've got some pictures of it in my current newsletter. I know pictures of it are in our material. I'd love to get in it sometime, but I haven't had the chance. But it's ultra cool, and I hope the council supports the HL designation or beginning the process. So that's my motion.
I'll second the motion, Madam Mayor.
So there's a motion and a second, but I just want to make sure that we don't need explicit agreement of the proposed requirements. Mr. Clerk or Mr. Rankin, I just want to make sure that We don't need absolute explicit agreement from the applicant or representative.
Mayor, I think we're fine, given that it's their request and their application in this instance to impose the HL zoning.
Alrighty, so Mr. Clerk, you are requested to read ordinance 11888 by number and title only.
Ordinance number 11888 relating to zoning, amending zoning district boundaries in the area located approximately 600 feet north of Elm Street and 1,400 feet east of Campbell Avenue at 1830 North Potter Place in case C92113, John H. Beck House, historic landmark, R2 to HLR2, and setting an effective date.
So there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, let's go to roll call.
Mr. Kozaczek?
Aye.
Ms. Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Mayor Romero?
Aye.
Mr. Cunningham?
Aye.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Dahl?
Aye.
Mr. Fimbres?
Aye.
Ordinance number 11888 passes by a vote of 7-0. Item 10.
Transportation and Mobility Move Tucson Plan, Resolution number 23420.
City Manager's communication number 365 dated December 7th is received into and made part of the record. Mr. Clerk, you are requested to read Resolution 23420 by number and title only.
Resolution number 23420 relating to transportation and mobility, authorizing and approving the final draft of the Move Tucson Long Range Transportation Plan for the City of Tucson and declaring an emergency.
What is the council's pleasure?
Mayor, I move to pass and adopt resolution 23420.
I'll second that, Madam Mayor.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's go to roll call.
Mayor Romero?
Aye.
Mr. Fimbres?
Aye.
Mr. Cunningham?
Aye.
Ms. Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Mr. Dahl?
Aye.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye.
Mr. Kozaczek?
I think Steve is here with us still. Councilmember Kozaczek? Alrighty, absent excused. He must have had to go somewhere. Resolution 23420 passes by a vote of 6-0. Congratulations to our Department of Transportation and Mobility, which I see on the screen. Diana Alarcon, thank you so much for your hard work and the work of your dedicated staff. You are wonderful. This is a great vision for Tucson, and I will allow Councilmember Kozaczek to say that he loves the Move Tucson plan, even though he was not able to vote for it.
I confess I was off, ran off to get some M&Ms. I'm back. I support it as well. 7-0.
Excellent. Mr. Clerk, Resolution 23420 passes by a vote of 7-0, if we can do that still.
Yes, ma'am.
Congratulations all, Diana. Congratulations to you and your team. This is amazing. Thank you for your hard work, and thank you to the community that participated visioning the future of our transportation and mobility here in Tucson. Great job, everyone.
Means you can't leave for 20 years now, Diana.
Absolutely. You've got to stay here. Item 11.
Economic Initiatives Industrial Sewing Workforce Accelerator, Resolution number 23421.
City Manager's communication number 367 dated December 7th is received into and made part of the record. Mr. Clerk, you are requested to read resolution number 23421 by number and title only.
Resolution number 23421 relating to economic development, authorizing and approving a funding agreement between the City of Tucson and Northern Arizona Technology and Business Incubator Incorporated, an Arizona nonprofit corporation doing business as Moonshot at NACET, related to workforce development and training in industrial sewn goods manufacturing.
Councilmember Dahl, I know that you wanted to make the motion on this one, but you also wanted to add some words. Go ahead, it's your floor.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to move this resolution number 23421. Do I need to wait for a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nikki.
There's a motion in a second. You go ahead.
I want to say some words about it, but Barbara Coffey from city staff, who's been involved in this incredibly wonderful program, is with us. And Barbara, would you like to say a few words first?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Dahl, welcome too. And it's an honor to be with you tonight. So just briefly, so that everyone is aware, this is an agreement between the City of Tucson and Northern Arizona Technology and Business Incubator, known as Moonshot. They're to provide a workforce training program in industrial sewn goods manufacturing, material innovation, and apparel circularity. This program will directly address an immediate need for more skilled labor in this industry sector and involves a local manufacturing employer with a current need to hire newly skilled labor in order to scale their business. So that makes it very unique. It allows us to assist a homegrown manufacturing company secure the talent they need to remain a stable employer in our city, a company that's also situated in the heart of a revitalization focus area. As you know, Councilmember Dahl, in Ward 3, the Thrive in the O5 area, and those where jobs are sorely needed. In addition, this project offers a unique collaboration with the Pasquayaqui tribe, as their economic development team will also assist with sourcing candidates for this training, which offers a pathway to upward mobility as it relates to employment. The term of the agreement is 2 years, and the program seeks to train more than 100 students annually in industrial sewing, design, and entrepreneurship. In the background materials, you saw the wage growth opportunities that this program will help support, and this is a growing sector, a sector growing in our entire region. Again, another unique benefit of this program is its alignment with the city's commitment to waste reduction. Moonshot will be hosting a number of events that encourage the community to participate in clothing and fabric donations as they source materials for this program. This creates another way to capture and reuse what would normally be discarded clothing headed for the landfill. And instead, we can support the apparel circularity goal of the program and engage this community to support it as well. So with that, I do have the training consultants here on hand. Scott Hathcock, also president of Sonoran Stitch Factory, Erica Ingve here. If you have any additional questions, then we will stand ready to answer. So with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Barbara, for being available, and great description. I can't really add much more. I'm so proud of this project, even though I had absolutely nothing to do with it. But it's got to be a model for more of these training programs, especially perfectly located. I love that we're going to be collecting clothing. And by the way, Steve, the bin that I have at my ward office where people will throw clothing in will not make any noise.
Thank you for that.
As opposed to other sorts of recycling.
Thank you for that.
Sorry. I almost always have to end the meeting with some sort of very bad joke. I apologize in advance for this. But seriously, it's a great program, and we have a motion and second, and it's late, so I'm just going to leave it at there. And thank you, Barbara, for having the staff, the business leaders, the nonprofit business leaders that are going to make this happen in our community along. Thank you to them. I love the name Moonshot. It reminds me of playing the game Hearts. When you shoot the moon, you win by giving everybody else all the points. It's a lesson in charity that benefits you, and that's what's going to happen with this program as well. Thank you.
Well, congratulations, Councilmember Dahl, and to Barbara Coffey, our Economic Initiatives Director, everyone involved. I know all around this project, it will be good for our economy, will be good for upward mobility for families, for training. I mean, on and on and on. I think, Barbara, you did a beautiful job describing all of the wonderful things that will happen because we're moving in this direction. So with that.
And also thank you to Sarah Lonius and the Ward 3 staff and Karen Ulick and others before that were instrumental in this. Thank you to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, council member. Let's go to roll call then.
Mr. Dahl?
Aye.
Mayor Romero?
Aye.
Mr. Fimbres?
Aye.
Mr. Cunningham?
Aye.
Ms. Santa Cruz?
Aye.
Mr. Kozaczek?
Good work, Kevin. Aye.
Mrs. Lee?
Aye.
Resolution 23421 passes by a vote of 7-0. Congratulations all. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Item 12.
Adjournment?
Council will stand adjourned. The next regularly scheduled meeting will be on Tuesday, December 21st, 2021 at or after 5:30 p.m. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful evening and have a happy rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you,